how Dhruv Maharaj is able to fight with the yakshas, basically. So these particular verses, when we actually go from yesterday's discussion, it was Dhruv Maharaj heard. Okay, thank you. Dhruv Maharaj actually heard that his brother Uttama was killed by the yakshas in the Himalayan mountains, being overwhelmed with lamentation and anger. And we discussed yesterday how a devotee, how is it, what is this misunderstanding that a devotee does not ever get angry or something like that. And in text 5 to 8, we'll just quickly read the translations. Dhruva Maharaj went to the northern direction of the Himalayan range. In a valley, he saw a city full of ghostly persons who were followers of Lord Shiva. Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, as soon as Dhruva Maharaj reached Alkapuri, he immediately blew his conch shell, and the sound reverberated throughout the entire sky and in every direction. The wives of the yakshas became very much frightened. From their eyes, it was apparent that they were full of anxiety." And in text 7, Maitreya Muni tells Vidura, "O hero Vidura, the greatly powerful heroes of the yakshas, unable to tolerate the resounding vibration of the conch shell of Dhruva Maharaj, came forth from the city with weapons and attacked Dhruva. Dhruva Maharaj, who was a great charioteer and certainly a great bowman, also immediately began to kill them by simultaneously discharging arrows, 3 at a time." So there's definitely a lot of significance in these. There was only a very short purport of Srila Prabhupada. And because there's not much explanation of Srila Prabhupada, we are trying to seek blessings from Srila Prabhupada to give us more light onto what is the quality of Dhruv Maharaj. So before we just say, I'll just recite a short prayer asking for blessings from the spiritual master. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bir Krishna Das Goswami Niti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So again, my warm welcome to everyone present here, and my apologies for not being able to be on time. And so Prabhu, if you like, you can stop sharing. So these verses have a few topics to cover, and some of those are really, really deep, and we see what reminds us that with the blowing of the conch shell, what's reminded? We're reminded of the Mahabharata. We're reminded of Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna or the Pandavas, when they blew their conch shell, what happened? When the Kauravas blew their conch shell, what was the outcome? So the nature of the war is something that we notice in these verses. But above that, we see how Dhruva Maharaj's, we get a chance to study Dhruva Maharaj's character. So we may see the one aspect is that Dhruva Maharaj performed austerities in the previous chapters. We read how Dhruva Maharaj performed so many austerities, and by performing these austerities, he was able to see the Lord. And as as he saw the most beautiful form of the Lord, he had this desire to offer the Lord some prayers. And in his offering to the prayers, he very keenly realized and he clearly realized that the nature of his desire, how he was asking for broken pieces of glass where in front of when he had diamond. So he clearly understood that nothing but the pure love of God in the association of pure devotees is the sum and substance of all existence, basically, of all knowledge. And in the beginning of this chapter, we see that Dhruv Maharaj is married here, and that great devotee at 5 now here is a young person who is married and is ruling. And we may see Dhruv Maharaj as a ruler, but basically his Vaishnav qualities, which he has actually imbibed in his very, very young age, is still there, very strong, is definitely there, very strong. So the quality of a Vaishnava is para dukkha dukhi. So he is very much touched by, yesterday, Her Grace Achyuta Mataji was explaining that very beautifully of the character of Dhruva Maharaj and lamentation and anger in a devotee. But this now para dukkha dukhi means it's a form of compassion. Compassion is there. So compassion, a Vaishnav always laments. He's sad to see the sufferings of others. For example, we have so many examples in the scriptures that talk about this quality of a Vaishnava, the quality of para dukkha dukhi. So now Dhruv Maharaj, we may misunderstand that Dhruv Maharaj now is a ruler, and therefore now he's heading his army to the Yakshas towards Himalayas, and Yakshasas are being attacked by him. But at the same time, we can't forget this very basic fact that Dhruv Maharaj is a Vaishnava. He's a devotee. He's a pure devotee. So he, being a Vaishnava, he has understood his incapacity to offer prayers, his incapacity of asking, how small and insignificant his desire was in front of pure devotional service, so this means that this is a very clear indication that he was definitely very, very, very humble. So the question here comes that, is he fighting for himself? No, he's not fighting for himself. He's clearly understood. He's a self-realized, God-realized individual. He's a self-realized, God-realized devotee. So he's definitely very humble. So how can he be misunderstood that he's fighting this battle against the Yakshas who have killed his brother? Definitely he is a ruler, and he's fighting, but he's fighting in the mood of a devotee. He's fighting in the mood of a Vaishnava who feels sad for the suffering of others. So he has seen that the Yakshasas killed his brother Uttama, and as a result, Mother Suruchi left her body as well. So in this situation, what a devotee should do? We now can come back to Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna had a similar situation. He did not want to fight because Arjuna is a devotee. He feels compassionate. Of the 6 reasons of the 6 reasons of sorry. Of the 5 reasons Arjuna gave to Krishna, the first one was definitely based on compassion. So the devotee does not want violence. But in Bhagavad Gita, it's very clearly mentioned that violence is right when there is a cause, and the cause is to be stand for something that is right. So we can learn from that. So from there, that how the different situation is created for a devotee to show his compassion, to show how, or to show the character of a devotee. So taking this emotion of righteousness, taking this emotion as a Vaishnav quality, Dhruv Maharaj heads to the city of Alkapuri, and then he blows his conch shell. Now, very nicely, we can just in short analyze the blowing of the conch shell. Let's analyze the sound of conch shell. Would anybody like to reflect back to what it was in Mahabharata or what it was in Bhagavad Gita? And let's compare a little bit of these two verses from Bhagavad Gita, the different conches that, the conch shells that were being blown. Yes.
Hare Krishna Mataji, it's a symbol of victory.
Yes, it's a symbol of victory. So how was the sound of the Kauravas blowing of the conch shell?
Tumultuous.
Very tumultuous, and it was heartbreaking, and it was like very, very harsh. It was it was not transcendental, but at the same time, the conch that all the Pandavas and Krishna, when they blew, what was the sound?
Sons of Dhritarashtra.
It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra, it says.
Right.
So it was transcendental. Similarly, we see the verse here and we say, what was the sound? Resounding vibration. Resounding vibration. This means that this gives a lot of hope. And if you have noticed in one of the translations, there is the yakshas were, like, who are the yakshas? The yakshas were, Srila Prabhupada mentions that yakshas are mainly the devotees of Shiva. Now, we may think Shiva, so these all ghostly characters are the part and parcel of Shiva. No. We have just to understand the guna there. We don't have to at all talk about Lord Shiva as a negative, ghostly element or a lord of. Definitely there is this guna, and we can't forget this fact that Lord Shiva is the Param Vaishnava, is the most exalted Vaishnava. So as we analyze the blow of conch shell in this, the devotees who are blowing the conch shell, the devotees blowing of conch shell is always transcendental, always resounding, always, which means that transcendental here means vanquishing the negative elements. And here we see that the yakshas, they got really, they knew in the following verse, they knew that they are going to be losing it. They already knew it. In their heart, they already anticipated, because negative elements can't stand strong in front of transcendental elements, spiritual elements. So this is very indicative of the blowing of conch shell. With that limited response to just in translation, my response is very little. My realization is very little, and because Srila Prabhupada's purports were not there, so whatever I could understand from the translations, I could bring up with two of the main factors that were to be analyzed. So I really want to, if you allow me, I would like to read a prayer from the Beggar series on Paradukha Dukhi. This is such heart touching that we see that how a Vaishnava, what is the meaning of true compassion, what compassion actually means. So, and compassion is one of the biggest quality, and only by the basis of compassion we can go back to Godhead. So allow me around 7-8 minutes to read this beautiful meditation. This is meditation 33 from the Beggar Series 1. And the title says, Compassion is the Key. So I'm going to read now. Yes, this is by His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. And very beautifully these are written. So if you like, you can close your eyes, visualize it, do as you like. So compassion is the key. Yesterday, my dear Lord Shama, I tried to make an appeal to you. I inquired, Dear Lord, since I have been away from you for so long, trying to do your work in the material worlds, don't you think it's time for me to return home, back to your divine abode? You glanced at me in a pertaining and loving way. And instead of being angry with me for my presumptuous and arrogant nature, you, out of great concern, asked my spiritual master to enlighten me. The spiritual master said, My dear son, please come with me. See that blind man stumbling around, trying to move about as people are bumping into him. When your compassion is so strong for this soul that you are ready to take his place, freeing him from his torment, then you'll be a candidate for the kingdom of God. As I studied the blind man's condition, I was overwhelmed with compassion. The spiritual master said, My dear son, please come with me. Observe this man who has impaired speech. There are so many things he would like to talk about and express to others. But since he cannot talk, he is usually disregarded. This leaves the poor man in great frustration. When you're ready to take his place so he can be freed of his torment, then you will be a candidate for the kingdom of God. As I studied the man's condition, I was overwhelmed with compassion. The spiritual master requested that I continue with him. He said, Please observe the invalid confined to his bed. Notice how he's a burden to his so-called friends and family members. They'll be so relieved when he finally dies. When your compassion is so strong for this soul that you're ready to take his place, so he can be freed from his torment, then you will be a candidate for the kingdom of God. As I studied the invalid's condition, I was overwhelmed with compassion. The spiritual master mentioned, Come this way, my beloved son. Take notice of this homeless man. At the end of the day, he has no family or home to return to. And even when he tries to find a place to rest, sometimes the children harass him or the police arrest him. When your compassion is so strong for this soul that you're ready to take his place, so he can be freed from his torment, then you'll be a candidate for the kingdom of God. As I studied the homeless man and his condition, I was overwhelmed with compassion. The spiritual master again requested, then I continue with him. He said, Observe the single woman with many children. For so long, she had been looking for love, security, and protection. However, after being cheated, maltreated, and abused by her previous husbands, she is now single and has no substantial means of taking care of herself or her children. When your compassion is so strong for her, then that you are prepared to take her place so that she can be free from her torment, then you will be the candidate for the kingdom of God. As I studied her predicament, I was overwhelmed with compassion. My spiritual master then led me to a situation that seemed to be a contradiction. He said, Please observe this woman. We took notice of a very wealthy lady who seemed very secure. However, each moment was hell for her because she had no children and desperately wanted to be a mother. She questioned her womanhood, as did her associates. She felt cursed by Providence and often thought of committing suicide. When your compassion is so strong for this soul that you're willing to take her place so she can be relieved of her torment, then you will be a candidate for the kingdom of God. And as I studied her predicament, I was overwhelmed with compassion. The spiritual master further requested, and I continued with him, please observe this wretched man sentenced to a life of imprisonment. Each day he wakes up with nothing to look forward to. He has lost all contact with the outside world. Even his own family no longer communicates with him. He wishes that he had never been born, prays for his life to end. He would like to commit suicide, but his imprisonment will not provide such freedom. When your compassion, my dear son, is so strong for this soul that you are even willing to take his place, so can he be relieved of this torment, then you will be a candidate for the kingdom of God. As I studied the prisoner's condition, I was overwhelmed with compassion. The spiritual master encouraged me to observe the situation of a helpless child who was being repeatedly abused by those who were supposed to be her protectors. This innocent child kept turning to her parents and others for love and protection, but all they gave her was more abuse. The little child, unfortunately, perceived the entire world as a hostile place, where adults existed just to inflict pain upon her. Here again, my son, I must stress to you that when your compassion is so strong for this soul that you're willing to take her place so she can be freed from this torment, then you will be a candidate for the kingdom of God. As I studied the little girl's condition, I was overwhelmed with compassion. The spiritual master asked me to take notice of a refugee family. They lived like wild animals from one danger to another, looking for food, shelter, and security, even though they were not behind bars. They were imprisoned by the desperate condition. In great fear, they tried to shake off the past, moving from city to city and camp to camp. Their release would come only from death, which stalked their every step. My dear spiritual master repeated, when your compassion, my dear son, is so strong for these souls that you're willing to take their place as they can be freed from their torment, then you will be a candidate for the kingdom of God. And as I studied their pitiful predicament, I was overwhelmed with compassion. I did not have time to compose myself when my spiritual master said, once more, please come with me. Regard this elderly lady. She has given her life to her friends and family, but now she's grown old and wrinkled. No one wants to even look at her withered face. Even her own children treat her as if she has a contagious disease, painfully avoid her. Even the smallest request from her causes such resentment that they frequently beat her. Her family members are worse than vultures. They take her money and other assets, hoping all the while that she'll soon die so that they can be through with her once and for all. The spiritual master turned to look at me with tear-filled eyes. I had not realized how much he too had been moved by the sufferings of these souls. The tears ran more profusely down his face as he said with a choked-up voice, when you have such compassion for these tormented souls, that you not only are willing to change places with them, but are eagerly willing to remain in this hellish planets eternally, giving up all the credits you have earned to be used by others. When you're willing to give up all considerations of your own liberation so that these souls can be liberated, only then can you be considered a serious candidate to return back home, back to Godhead. The enormous problems and sufferings of these people overwhelmed me. Maharaj says, I thought Is it possible for any person to have such profound selfless compassion? Before I could express this in words, I looked again at my guru's face and I realized how fortunate I was for standing before me. Guiding me was such a selfless, glorious soul. I knew he would gladly forego all personal concerns to guarantee the return of other souls to the kingdom of God. There was nothing left for me to say or do other than to promise the spiritual master that I would not rest until I had developed such profound compassion. Such compassion is not possible without serious blessings from the Guru and other souls. So I beg for their blessings. Other than that, I'll be forced to remain a pseudo devotee. I beg that you make me such a pure devotee, although I'm most unworthy. So these prayers, this meditation really, really puts us into that understanding of compassion doesn't mean like keeping ill feeling at heart and actually ill feeling at heart, but outside we are doing a drama where we see that, oh yeah, who knows the internal, but can we hide anything from our Guru? We can't. Our Guru knows everything. Srila Prabhupada knows everything about us, in and out. So that is the level of compassion a pure devotee has. And with this, if there is, I would like to take a stop here. But if there's anyone who would like to add on to this, please feel free.
It was a very nice, nice quote from Maharaj's book. Thank you for sharing, Mataji. It was really lovely, eye-opening.
Yes. It actually tells us about the true meaning of compassion. Actually, we really need to learn what compassion is, and definitely the portions up here, which are, that's why Srila Prabhupada always says, read his books scrutinizingly. So until and unless we really find out other means where we may understand with our own limited knowledge, and we may just pass through these verses just thinking that Dhruv Maharaj, yes, he's fighting with the yakshas and what more. But we definitely have understood this aspect of Dhruv Maharaj, who's very, very compassionate, actually. Thank you, Mataji, for sharing that.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Oh, what a great example of compassionate person. It's very nice. Yeah, what is that? Text and the realization you read it is very good. It gives us a direction to think of it again. Compassion is not a simple thing. It's only pure devotee can do it. So
Yes.
this is a very good quality of a pure devotee, the one of the finest quality, which is to be understood in a very, very careful way. And only Srila Prabhupada can guide us to have this, to have a thought in this direction, nobody else. So now I think where we are not even in a portion of that. Think about the compassion, the word we cannot use at all. We are so self-interested. It's very hard for us to think about compassionate nature. So very good, nice examples you have given, and how the pure devotee, two sides. One is the softer side and the harder side. So that also gives the very good example. Tinada Pishunichana, Tarura Picha Ishnuna, Amanena Manadina, Kirtaniya Sadhari. So that's two examples, very, very nicely explained. Thank you, Mataji. Very good understanding. I'm just trying to find out. I read it yesterday, but I could not find out anything. Only thing that your conch shell, that was the thing was whirling in my mind. Rest of the things didn't at all touched. But you have opened up to so many points with beautiful explanation. Thank you so much. for
All the best,
enlightening.
Srila Prabhupada.
Teja. Thank you so much.
So yeah, we don't have to lose heart in this, Prabhu. We don't have to lose heart because it says, Maharaj says that such compassion is not possible without serious blessings from the Guru. So we just have to please our Guru. Our life's motive has to be like, our examples are already there to how to please Guru. And Gurus, all the spiritual masters, they are always so pure and they're so compassionate that if they have taken us unto their shelter, for sure there is a great hope for us. So we don't have to feel, even though we see that we are nowhere here, but we don't have to feel bad about it, because we have to feel really, really blessed that we are under the shelter of our spiritual masters, who are who are ocean of mercy. And as they're oceans of mercy, then in that case, we just have to be serving that entity who is full of compassion, and that one drop of compassion will automatically flow into us through that medium.
Yeah, those examples are selected so fine, It pins you every moment. The last one, the old lady, oh my God, such a beautiful example. We see every day, every moment, everywhere, in every family. That touches really a beautiful example of compassionate nature. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Prabhu.
Oh, okay. Mataji, you go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna Mataji. Very
Hare
nice
Krishna, Mataji.
examples of Paro Dukhi Dukhi, compassionate. Also, I'm saying you are also very compassionate to us. I think you are out of home and somewhere you are giving the class, and it's so really, it's saying that all these things, how the quality of Vaishnavas and how the quality of pure devotees. Yeah, really, really very nice seeing you and your dictation of from that Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Very nice example of compassionate. And when we think about that, because we did not feel from our heart, we can say from outside, we have to do, but we did not feel from our heart. If we stand in that position, what we will do. Yeah. So yes, surely our blessings from pure devotees and blessings from Vaishnavas will get one day, maybe. Thank you. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. I had a good fortune of meeting Bhaktivedanta Maharaj in Fiji. It was in the 90s. And I was surprised that in spite of his health, he was so energetic, and he did a huge Harinam in one of the shopping centers. It was getting evening, and he didn't like to stop. And only later on I learned from the temple president that he had cancer, and his leg was in a very painful condition. And even he didn't tell anybody to get this, like feeling compassion for him. But he just went out and did his duty to Srila Prabhupada to give this holy name to everyone, in spite of his very, very serious condition. And in that sort of mood, he was still pushing. Just imagine. So when you mentioned his verses, I remember this incident in Fiji, and his heart was really full of compassion. Yes, I agree. Only person who has gone through this severe pain and experienced this suffering of the other people, only person can write like this. Is coming out of the heart. Yes. So thank you, Mataji, for sharing. Just another point. When you're discussing about mercy and being compassionate, we just read yesterday in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada said that he says, Dhruva Maharaj was the king, and when his brother was unceremoniously killed, it was his duty to take revenge against the Yakshasa from the Himalayas. So it's king has his wearing number of different hats. You know, he is a protector of dharma, and he's a protector of his family, and he's a protector of his kings, his kinsmen. So it's not out of hate or revenge that he controls the undharmic people. So when he went out to kill the Yakshas, it was not like it was for his own sense gratification. It was his duty as a king. And yesterday, Achyuta Bhava Mataji explained this very nice point. He has still compassion, but he's doing in a different way. Just like a doctor doing surgery, it might be very painful to remove some tumor or something. It might be like take a couple of months to get healing. But at that point, it might seem very, very painful. But eventually the result is good because the patient can recover and can live his normal life. So the compassion is like it had to be considered in different aspects. It's just not that we feed the poor or feed the hungry. That's also compassion. But protect the dharma, and in spite of giving some pain to other people, it is also compassion. So yes, it's a two-way thing. It had to be like Gandhi. He just went for non-violence, but he didn't respect that non-violence is one tool, but to protect the dharma is more important. So it can be, if we are not following the Shastra, Sadhu, Guru, Shastra, and Shastra, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, the word compassion can be very misled.
Yes.
Like Prabhupada, I think, explained in the Christian tradition, some ashrams or missions in Calcutta, they are feeding meat to the people who are being treated in the hospital. So in one way they are showing compassion, but another way they are not looking at the whole like holistic way. So it's very, so here our Vedic Dharma teaches how to look at everyone in a very compassionate way. There are two sides. It can be like somebody might say it's not dharmic, but we are putting the dharma, then it can be a bit painful sometimes. Thank you, Madhu.
So true, Prabhu, very true. Because most people have this understanding that Bhagavad Gita is all about war, and the Lord is instigating the devotee to take up war, but at the same time, righteousness and wearing how the actual analysis is very nicely given if we only delve deep into these studies with the help of Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. Thank you, Prabhu, for bringing up that point. It's so beautiful. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Anybody else got any comments or reflection?
Yes, Prabhu, just when mother punished to her child, so we can also see the other way of compassion, right?
And usually they take it the opposite way. the parent can be in trouble.
Even teachers in the school.
That's why it is very, very important to analyze the thing in the right perspective. Because if you don't know the Shastra, you get misled. And that's where you end up with big trouble. And that is what is happening, Prabhuji just mentioned. In New Zealand, we are not analyzing the thing in the right perspective of the Shastra. That's why it goes in the opposite direction.
True, so true, Prabhu. Very true.
That's another example showing to be a king is not an easy thing. If you understand the right perspective, it's a very, very complex thing to be a good king. Because so many duties bound the king in different direction. He was pulled from every angle, but still he has to manage his duty in every respect so that he balances out. Because one way or other, people are not happy. Yes? So as you know that one cannot make happy everybody. So that example comes immediately because we see in the different mood or different angle, and we end up with misleading the conception. That is not the right perspective. A good king or Rajrishi is different. Is one way king to protect his kingdom. One way is a good devotee, and this is the example of Dhruva Maharaj.
Yes.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you for sharing. So we'll end here. Anybody got any further reflection? No, we'll tell you. Thank you, Mataji, for coming up.
Thank you.
I think you are broadcasting from your workplace, and I see some $1,000
Yeah,
donation.
check. Yeah, 2,500.
I think from shop, Mataji is in shop somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the teacher's room, Prabhu, and it's a very nice, quiet place. And I thought, okay, this is the best place. The students might not come. So
Thank you. Taking out your time in spite of busy schedule to give a class from your workplace. Thank you, Mataji. High Grace, Radha Padma Mataji ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta ji, Gautam Hari Hari Bol. Vancha Kalpataru Vaishya, Vasiddha Vaishya, Patitanam Pavanibhyo, Vishnavibhyo, Namo.
Nanda Koti Vaishnavendra ki jai.
Gautam Hari Bol.